the Flyers made their decision. Jett Luchanko is no longer on the roster. He's been sent back to his OHL club, Guelph Storm. But is he going to be staying there the whole year? Is he going to be staying on a team that um, plainly does not have the talent to kind of really keep up with him, as we saw from a 10-1 loss recently? But obviously, the main thing that we kind of want to focus on with Luchanko this season is just growing his offensive game. He has all the defensive capabilities. He's able to forecheck. He has the speed. But is he able to really drive a team's offense? And I don't think he's going to be able to do a whole lot of that with the Storm and with the players that are around him. So obviously, OHL teams are circling. OHL teams are looking and creeping and looking and creeping around Luchanko and the Guelph Storm to see if he's available, to see if he can get traded by the trade deadline in the OHL. So he might have a change in scenery. But where necessarily does he really fit? Does he fit in with a team that has already set up a system? Or does he want to be the guy? Does he suit better a team that's like, here you go, here's everything, but we have enough talent, unlike Guelph, to really support you? That is where I think it's going to be really interesting. And that is where we're going to be talking about today. As we kind of go through potential OHL landing spots if Jett Luchanko were to be traded. And this little Luchanko talk is, of course, brought to you by Bet Online. Basketball fans, at that time of year again, the NBA is back. From opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, Bet Online has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting. I don't know if you can bet on Luchanko getting traded in the OHL, but imagine if you could. This season, every game matters. Bet Online has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game. It's not just the NBA. It's not the OHL, but BetOnline has odds on everything from football, MLB, NHL to political props. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. And I think the first team I want to really talk about today is the Windsor Spitfires. It's a team that is really interesting, really off to a really hot start. 10-1-1 to start the season as we're recording. They boast a plus 33 goal differential. And all of this is being led by one player, basically. Liam Greentree has 7 goals and 26 points in just 11 games. But the thing with Greentree, and although if you read Broad Street Hockey, which everyone should, and subscribe for $5 a month, you would be able to read our draft coverage and read about how we really liked Greentree as a prospect. But it didn't really gel a whole lot with the Flyers just because they have so many players like him. Maybe not at his skill level and everything else, but he is a poor skating winger that is very smart and able to control the play and obviously shoot the puck very well. So we didn't like the fit with the Flyers necessarily, even though now it kind of looking back, the Flyers could probably use a guy like that on the wing. But with Luchanko, there's a potential of this dynamic duo getting formed with Greentree, who was drafted by the Kings, by the way. I didn't mention that. Drafted by the Kings, and with Greentree and Luchanko, there's an opportunity to just basically lead this team to even more success. And obviously, this hot start won't continue. There's 10-1-1, but they for this hot start, they didn't really make a big splashy move. There's not a whole lot of talent besides Greentree on that roster. So this move, I think, would be able to play with the balance of Luchanko being the guy, but having a player that could actually take over from him once in a while. I think this is a really good opportunity, potentially, for him to grow and really develop into being an offensive contributor. The only issue is that if he were to be the guy in Windsor, that he would be responsible for things that he's already good at, and it could potentially weigh him down, being, I have to kill all these penalties, I have to play so well on the back end, and I can't really let my stick handling fly and set up with Greentree and all this stuff on the power play. I think being an all situations player is good, but I feel like seeing what I've seen from Luchanko at 18 years old, that he would like care so much about being good defensively and forechecking hard and being and back checking even harder that he would like I think just take on everything from Windsor in all aspects and try to win the game that way instead of maybe cherry picking a little bit, which he maybe should learn more of. The next team I want to talk about is obviously if you don't cover, or not cover, but if you don't pay attention to the OHL, you'll know this team as obviously probably the first team that you think about when you think about the OHL. Of course, I'm talking about the London Knights. The Knights are kind of like the Yankees, again, if you don't cover the OHL. It's every team kind of hates playing them, hates their fans, but they have the most resources. They have the most money in the league. They will spend whatever, but also they have a crazy amount of players that come from that city. Obviously, we know Travis Konechny from there, but like Nazem Kadri, Bo Horvat, Drew Doughty, Nick Suzuki, Joe Thornton, Jeff Carter, and of course, the legend himself, Eric Lindros. Why did I pronounce that just like he was Portuguese? Eric Lindros was born in London. But I think London's roster is kind of an interesting makeup right now. Obviously, we know Oliver Bonk and Denver Barkey as Flyers prospects. But they have Barkey playing down the middle. They have Landon Sim, who I believe is a Blues prospect. 6th round pick, like obviously not high level skill or anything. Easton Cowan, least prospect on one of the wings. Sam Riley plays a little bit. Oilers 1st round pick, which Flyers traded to them in 2024. So it's not a team that like is like the Corey Perry led London Knights or like John Tavares coming to London from Oshawa kind of thing. Of course, I'm talking about OHL history stuff, and that's probably so boring to people. But this isn't a dominant team. This isn't a team that is going to be like breaking people's minds and everything. There's an opportunity for Luchanko, if you were to go to London, to really, really get surrounded with multiple talented players like Easton Cowan and just build off of them. Just kind of like be the guy, but not like he would be in Windsor. I think it's an interesting kind of dynamic that could be in London. With all these players, and of course I didn't even mention Sam Dickinson, who could be the best player of them all on the blue line. Again, like it's a team that's very interesting and always has expectations of championships, but it's a team that right now is built in a way that like there's a Luchanko basically sized hole, and then like I didn't even mention yet Luchanko among all the NHL greats that I mentioned that are from London. Luchanko himself is from London. It's just a hotbed of hockey. Minor league system's great, but it's just Luchanko being from there. Everything just attribute. They didn't really trade for a lot. I'm pretty sure they still have a decent amount of picks to spend on players. It's just a dynamic that I think is kind of like just well suited. And as boring as it is, like, oh, the prospect comes back home to the London Knights. Like, of course, it's like Juan Soto going to the Yankees or whatever. Not obviously he's from New York, but like, oh yeah, of course the Yankees got that guy. Of course the Rangers kind of just sign a bunch of players because they're in New York. It's kind of a boring, and I feel like some people are already expecting it. But I think it's just it's a team and a situation and environment where I think Luchanko could just really flourish, get 100 points, and then help Flyers prospects along the way and already build like pre-built chemistry with players that could be playing either alongside him in Barkey or like on the power play, or maybe not Oliver Bonk's probably not on the power play, but be just a responsible contributor at the NHL level with Jett and with these players, and then already have that pre-built from the OHL. And I think it's just it's an interesting opportunity. Of course, we'll talk about other teams that again are still very good and still would be a great situation. But I think London's just like by far and away just like, again, boring, but it's the team that kind of everyone's thinking about and just like already in green and envisioning Luchanko in green and yellow. And honestly, if it's not London, there's one team that I think, and already has been rumored, according to Jeff Merrick, kind of spreading the little seeds of eventually down the line of OHL trades. But if it's not the Knights, then I think it has to be the Oshawa Generals because they're the right mix of a team that can compete, has gone deep in the playoffs before, obviously, and recently, and they have like an insane level of top end talent. Right now, third overall pick Beckett Seneca, Avalanche top prospect Callum Ritchie, and then you get on the blue line Blue Jays prospect Luca Morelli, Leafs first rounder from last year Ben Danford, kind of as a solid player, and then they recently acquired Jets first round prospect Colby Barlow recently. The top end talent is insane. I think they're already destined for a long run. But this is the team that I'm talking about when Luchanko would be more of a cog. I don't even know if you get top power play time, and that's an issue because of Ritchie being already a center and Barlow having such a role in Seneca. Like, do you really put Luchanko there, or do you want Luchanko to play on that second unit and kind of run things a little bit like the Flyers did this season? But it's hard to see Luchanko fitting in well enough that we would get excited about him. He would still put up a bunch of points. He could still probably score 90 just because it's an improvement no matter what. But it's basically trying to join a team that should already have championship hopes. Now you're just joining a team and being potentially lost, and he could have it coming out. He could oversee Ritchie, and although Ritchie's pretty damn good, but I think it's a tricky thing to see. It would be tricky for us to see him and understand that with the context of that's a really deep team, top heavy, top end talent. Luchanko isn't even the most hyped NHL prospect on that team. So it'd be tough to see, but I think the Gens are a real potential landing spot. Another team that was mentioned by Merrick that could be interested in, they're always kind of lurking in the weeds of OHL trade rumors is of course the Barrie Colts. The Barrie is not really known for a lot of success. Of course, we kind of recently know Barrie as the home of Tyson Forrester, but they kind of just are seen as a step below in terms of prestige and class of the London Knights and Generals and maybe even the Greyhounds, like those established OHL franchises. But they still have decent players. They still have decent prospects on the team right now, like Utah first rounder Cole Bedwin, however you say that, Bedwin Soundclash. Stars prospect Emil Hemming, and then you have Brad Gardner, Riley Patterson, those kind of deeper mid-round prospects that are interesting, and they're still drafted and they're still good. Riley Patterson as a late round pick was honestly a very good thing that I saw on the second day of the draft. But I think Barrie might just be, if they're interested in Luchanko, then I think it's really to be that guy. Like Bedwin and Gardner and Patterson as forwards and Hemming, they're good. They could probably end up being middle six forwards, but I don't think that they have that ceiling that Luchanko has and that work ethic potential that Luchanko can bring. So he would really be in Barrie seen as the guy, the provider, and be able to lift everyone else up kind of to his level. And then they're definitely good prospects. They're prospects that I would love to have in the Flyer system, but they're not the players that are on the same hype as Luchanko, put it plainly. And finally, the last team we're going to talk about is a team that I think they're in an interesting spot. They're kind of like the Spitfires, and you'll see what later, that they have can really own in on one potential player, but then everything else is just in the mushy middle. So this is the Brampton Steelheads. If you want to get really into the OHL talk and discover junior hockey, they moved 4 kilometers. That's whatever the math is, 2.2 something miles down the road. But because of borders, they were the Mississauga Steelheads. They had to rechange their name, rechange their branding, rechange everything because their previous arena was so bad that they had to move to a new one. And now they're Brampton, and now doing well and everything, but they literally just had to move down the street, basically. like a minute car drive. So the Steelheads are really interesting because there's potentially one of the most hyped up and thought about NHL prospects for next year. This is uh, a player that is a right winger and has basically every tool and every attribute that NHL GMs really want in a top pick. This is Porter Martone, or Martone. I've never heard it spoken out loud. But he should go in one of the top 10 picks at the very least. He has 12 goals and 25 points in his first 11 games, not this season. And he's 6'3", has captained Canada's U under 18 team before. Like he's a type of player that I think GMs just like scream about and will bang the table for them. And he is leading the Steelheads offense right now, obviously. Outside of Martone, it's Renkoff, Carson Renkoff of the Kraken prospect of the second rounder. And he's centering Martone right now. So I think Luchanko has that perfect opportunity to build chemistry with Martone and then kind of potentially future flyer, but kind of just build chemistry, develop an insane OHL duo that every team would be envious of, and just I think it's a similar thing with Greentree and Windsor, but I think it's just like a perfect situation that he could end up being a very good player on a decent team, that he would be the guy. And now, if it was my pick, I think you have London, who's a storied franchise and could use him. You have Oshawa, that they don't really need him. And then you have like Barrie, decent players, but Luchanko would kind of lift them up, especially with their speed. And then you have Windsor and Brampton kind of in that mushy, like he would be the guy and have a very good player to play next to. But are they really aiming for the championships with that roster? Because, of course, OHL trades are weird. OHL and CHL trades, they're going to have to give up 1 billion picks for Luchanko. I think Guelph is probably expecting dozens of draft picks. Who knows where they would land? I think a couple firsts of several seconds. But it's going to be a lot. And if a team really wants to commit to that player, they will. And Luchanko has the opportunity to potentially play even beyond this year. Like if he has a bad camp next season, then he could be back in the OHL and playing again for your team, having another run in the playoffs. But I think it's just But I think it's an interesting spot. I don't know where it'll land, but I think there's a preference of London, of course, because being from there, there's a preference of maybe just like seeing how he does with a bunch of talented players in Oshawa, and maybe potentially being like a guy in Barrie that could lead a bunch of players. I think there's definitely a lot to think about. Of course, this is Thomas at Broad Street Hockey. Like and subscribe at YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram if you want. And sign up for Broad Street. You could read articles like this. This is an article that we had on the website for just $5 a month. It's 16 cents a day. It's a perfect opportunity to kind of just read a bunch of very good writers, in my opinion, and cover the Flyers. It's going to be an exciting year. It's already kind of a dramatic year. So, yeah.